Good morning, everybody. This is Mike O'Neill speaking, talking to you from our service centre here in Wakefield. We're just about to get underway with our Getting the Most of Edgecam 2014 R2 webinar. Very privileged to have Simon Blakey alongside me this morning as my co-pilot. Good morning, Simon.
Good morning, everybody.
I think a lot of you will know Simon through his training and services experience in the past. We've got many attendees today, so we're just going to wait a couple more minutes for people to come on board, and then we'll get underway. Okay, so we'll get underway. Again, a very warm welcome to today's webinar. Again, I guess many of you have been on these types of webinars in the past. We'll just talk about some of the house rules. You should see your webinar conference panel on the right-hand side. You, as I say, will now be on mute mode from our side. You're all muted, but that doesn't prevent you from asking a question. Then just type a question in, and Simon or myself will answer it straight back to you. We will record this particular webinar and put it up on the internet if your colleagues wish to view it later on. Our webinar today approximately should last about 30-40 minutes. And of course today's webinar is all about Edgecam 2014 R2, and what we've simply done is picked out some of the juicy parts of the release. Obviously we would be here for 2 or 3 hours if we went through every single enhancement. We don't have time for all that, but we want to just focus on the parts that we feel are going to be more common and make you more productive, and obviously that's what this is all about. So we'll get underway, and our first item we'll talk about is CAD. Before we can talk about CAM, we need to talk about CAD, and of course with respect to CAD we talk about our part modeler. The major enhancement inside Edgecam Part Modeler is a new module called the 2D to 3D function, and this is the ability to take a flat line drawing, typically DWG or DXF, or indeed a detailed drawing, take that drawing and create that as a solid model. Now of course we've been able to do that in the past through Edgecam Part Modeler, but it's been a little bit verbose, long-winded, and now we've got a perfect tool to really accelerate that particular situation. You may ask, well, why have you brought this enhancement? There's a sim data report which we were reading that there's still 70% of CAM users are still using 2D CAD data. It's actually quite interesting talking to some of our Far East colleagues. The Japanese market are still predominantly using DXF and DWG, so to accelerate them into using solid models, and obviously then buying into the benefits of using, say, Strategy Manager and automatic machining, they therefore would need a solid model. So therefore this is why Part Modeler has been given this new enhancement. So we'll just break back away from the PowerPoint, and we'll go to Part Modeler, and we'll now talk through this typical part of how to create this part. As you can see, typical DWG file being already loaded, and straight away on the top right hand panel you'll see that Edgecam has swapped over to 2D to 3D, and you've only got really 3 icons to learn. First one is to configure the views, to line up the views, make sure the views are in the correct orientation. This takes you back to your tech drawing days, first hand elevation, third hand elevation. So we just need to make sure that the view and its origin is in the perfect alignment. So if the origin is wrong, as it is here, I want mine on the bottom right, you just simply push that origin over. And I want the front view, so we have our front view, and again watching my origin, and my bottom view, again just watching my origin. If I go wrong, I'm sure Simon will slap me. And if we go to the right view, again we watch that origin again is falling in the alignment, and then the left view. Now see how that one's just slightly slipped out, so you just push that one back in by manual alignment. And this is where your knowledge of using Edgecam Part Modeler comes in, because you just line them up on the corner there. That will shuffle over, create and close. So you'll see on the left hand panel now you've got your features. If one's wrong you can just delete them, but hopefully I've got these right first time. You'll then trace them. This just simply means to save you having to draw, you'll trace around the actual model. So you'll walk up to your model and select, and select again. You're just looking for no breaks and a clean sweep all the way around the profile. If that doesn't happen, then you've got the step-by-step way of producing it. But in this case, this one's been a little bit friendly to me. It's done it automatically. And then the moment of truth, the third icon, is the auto feature. An auto feature builds that 2D model, or 3D model I should say, into shape. So what may have been quite a labour intensive way of creating that part has now popped up for us. And of course you can still keep on creating. If I go 2D trace again and go for a hole and another hole and then cut through, you'll see the holes begin to appear. And of course this is a solid model, so you can still treat this in the same way that you've treated models in the past. You can still abandon, if you will, the 2D way and now start working on this model. So if I were to just say draw a boss on this particular face, we'll just do a boss command. Just OK that. You now see that's on there. You'll actually notice it's actually also on the 2D drawing as well. So 2D to 3D works for obviously millers and turners, and it's an accelerated way of producing a 2D model. Okay, so we'll just leave that behind. I'll turn off our Edgecam part modeler and I'll return back to the webinar slide, and we've just gone through our demonstration. We'll just pause a minute there just to make sure that the screen is catching us up. And of course, if you've got any questions, please ask away, type them into the chat panel, and we're more than happy to answer them. So that's Part Modeler for users who have obviously the Part Modeler Solid CAD/CAM license. Now we come to a very, very exciting part in the development of 2014 R2, and this is a modeling system that's inside our workflow software, inside Edgecam software itself, Edgecam Workflows for Solids. This is a modeling system inside Edgecam itself. Any user who's just received 2014 R2 will now notice that this is now available to use for yourselves. It is a simplistic, straightforward modeling system. It's not trying to compete against the part model. It's certainly not trying to compete against SolidWorks and Solid Edge. It's a very, very intuitive, very easy to use system to create obviously parts if you so wish. They're a picture of some of the parts that we've modeled inside of solids. But of course, again, you might import a solid and then want to draw some jigs and fixtures, so you could use EWS for that particular purpose. So let's move forward. Let's have a look what EWS is all about. And I say everybody will actually receive this inside their 2014 R2 package. So we see the EWS icon on the top left hand side. That means we're ready to rock and roll into modeling. We see our icons, and we're just going to start sketching straight away. So it uses the same principles: sketch, constrain, trim, and then go and actually model it. So we're going to draw a rectangle. I think even I can do that. And of course you can see the dynamic movement of the tool. Then we extrude. Again, we get some more dynamic tools here where we can push and pull if you want to, or you just simply type the values in. So I'll go 0 up and 50 millimeters 2 inches down. So great, we've got our model. Now if we want to make amendments to that, this is where the storyboard comes in. So any transaction that you commit will be presented down the storyboard. So if I just give me a click on the storyboard for the first transaction, which was obviously the creating of the rectangle, we see first of all the constraints. And just by a double click you can change the constraint. We'd expect no more, no less from any system really. So there's our first constraint. I use the mouse in the same way, so there's no new rules to learn there, and indeed we've still got the viewing commands as we'd see inside Edgecam anyway. So as I say, no extra functions to learn there. Draw a circle, so we just click, place it in a position, or indeed we'll just type our value in this area here, 50 millimeter circle. And that now makes me think, oh, I need to trim something like this. Where's my trimming command gone? So you've got an advanced button, advanced as you have in Edgecam workflow. I want to trim away. And we trim away the bit that we do not require. So I place the cursor on the area that I do not require, and you can see that's just trimmed it away. So we're on storyboard, we're editing the model, and as we finish, the model now takes on that particular appearance. And again, remember, you can use your viewing commands in the same way that you use viewing commands inside Edgecam standard. So the usual suspects are along here, the chamfer command. So I'll place a chamfer on this edge and OK that. And again, notice how the storyboard reacts to that. And what I'd like to do now is just do some extra sketching. So this concerns our planes, the work plane. So I need to draw a rectangle, but where does the rectangle need to go? As I walk my cursor around the area, you'll notice how the grid corresponds. So I just click the face, and now I'm under starter's orders, and I can draw away to my heart's content. Obviously I can constrain that if I wish. I'm going to do an open pocket, so that means an extrusion. So I'm going to cut extrude on this particular one, and we'll just do a 15mm extrusion. Again, another usual suspect would be the blending command. Let's blend, and we just go up to the edge and select. Mouse clicks, left click, right click are all the same as you'd find inside Edgecam and inside workflow. Drills, drill holes, again we just walk up to the work plane. So I want to have this plane. We can eyeball, we can look down in that area, and again we can either constrain, or in this case I'll be quite lazy and I'll just freehand click them along them faces. So we've got some drilled holes. And again, yes, you can just draw freehand, you don't have to just draw rectangles as I tend to do, but again, as you begin to draw, the work planes will appear. Again, it's a good idea to eyeball, as I say, down on that face. But again, you're under starter's orders now to draw, so draw away. Again, I'm just going to join this together. And your dimensioning tools, so here we find the dimension tools. Obviously you can't draw everything freehand. So here we have a length dimension, or you can go point to point, just digitize the two positions, or if you just digitize, pick the two lines, you'll get an angle. And if you wish, in this case we can do a boss cut revolve, so it knows it's going to cut, it just simply needs to know the area where it cuts, and then we'll cut that out. All the time, see how the storyboard is built up and built up, and at any time you can go back and change your mind about one of the dimensions or one of the features. Now we're done, and we'll save, and we'll return back to Edgecam workflow, where we'll begin to talk about some of the manufacturing enhancements and some of the user enhancements in Edgecam 2014 R1. Okay, so time for a little pause. I'll turn to Simon and we'll just pause the slideshow for a minute. Just make sure that everything's okay. Make sure there's no questions coming on board. Of course, if you've got a question, then feel free to ask. Any questions this morning, Simon? Have they woken up yet?
A couple of questions. Can we bring in other CAD formats into EWS?
It's a good question, yeah, and a very, very obvious question, because of obviously the ability of Part Modeler and other such systems. So unfortunately the answer is no at the moment. We're not allowed to bring in the XF, DWG, or indeed Parasolid, other files, but that is expected. We have, again, I go back a long way with Edgecam and designing in Edgecam. We've been designing in Edgecam for many years, of 2D to 3D. We've been waiting a long time for our modelling to come along. So this is our first hit of modelling. It's a very capable modelling system. But at this moment in time, no, we can't do that, but we do expect to have that enhancement given to us for 2015 R1 around autumn time this year. Let's just see if we get any more.
Can we use it for turned parts?
Oh yes, absolutely, yeah, and absolutely. You saw me do a revolve command at the end. So a turner would just simply draw half a profile, half the step shaft, if you imagine it, and then just revolve it. So instead of doing a boss cut divide, they'd be doing a boss cut revolve or a create revolve. Okay, so no more questions. Okay, so if we are getting questions, then we'll we'll answer them either individually or we'll shout them out if we can share them. But at the moment, I think we're all still pretty quiet at the moment. That's fine. Okay. Okay. I think we'll move on then. So now we come to, as I say, user experience. So these are enhancements that generically benefit and give advantage to any user, whether you have turning or milling, as that last question demonstrated. And these are all obviously inside Edgecam and workflow. So a lot of emphasis here on creating the CPLs, datums, and the association of a feature to a datum to a solid as well. So the first one I'm going to talk about is creating of a CPL. First of all, we have a brand new workplane creator called a view aligned. So a lot of 5-axis and multi-plane users would rotate a part and then wish to be imagining that that's the axis of the tool looking down onto the part. I want to create a CPL from that view. So you have a new item here called view aligned. Maybe more excitingly, there's a dynamic CPL creation where we take the new CPL marker that you might have noticed. It wasn't just a fresh lick of paint in the previous version. The reason why the CPL marker got enhanced in our previous version is so as we could use that as our CPL data marker creation, and you'll see me use that in a second or two. So having created a CPL, and obviously we know a CPL sticks to a solid model, you'll appreciate that if you were to move a solid model, the CPL would have stayed where it was. Now you'll notice that the CPL is associative. It will go with the solid model, whether you rotate or whether you translate it, the CPL will go with the solid model. And more so if you copy the solid model, so it's very, very usual to see, you know, I'm going to do a multi-load, give me 5 copies in the x-axis of this particular solid model. Edgecam will recreate and copy the CPL at the same time. So that's a lot of legwork has been removed just by that one enhancement. We'll also notice that when you create a feature, any type of feature, and you try to move a solid model, you'll see that horrible message on the top right hand side that because of association the feature won't move. That has now been removed from Edgecam, so you can do as many feature finding transactions as you wish, and then begin to rotate, move the solid model, and you'll find that the features will go with it as well. And you'll also see that you're able to move the CPL stated for a feature. So as we see that screenshot down the right hand side, you right click over a feature and say transfer that to another named CPL. That's particularly useful when you're doing automation, because automation will always index to a known CPL. So if you want to stop it indexing, you can move the CPL. We'll be coming to machining, and again this is for both millers and turners. We'll probably and hopefully will be aware of the planning board and automation. And what we'll notice in this particular release is that we have a brand new set of strategies, and you're given the ability to determine how those strategies deploy. So let's just talk about the screenshot on the top right hand side. This is the machine feature command. This has been enhanced, so you're able to say, rather than just doing both, meaning finish and rough at the same time, you've now got the ability to split them if you wish to do so. Strategy set means that you can deploy your own strategies rather than using the Edgecam shipped strategy. You can use your own strategy. Bottom right hand side, we have new strategies and new user control over those strategies. So you'll see an options box that gives you many different ways of determining how that strategy is actually deployed. Again, let me show you all these inside our demonstration. Interesting thing is that everybody now has the Strategy Manager license. So you hear me talking about being able to create your own strategies. Well, I can only do that if I have the license. Everybody now has that particular license, so you can go off and create your strategies, or indeed manipulate the strategies that are already inside Edgecam. And we continue our pictures on dialogue theme. Even for the more seasoned user, it's always useful to have a picture on a dialogue. We've done this on the threading cycle, and obviously on, as we see here in the screenshot, the drill cycle. And quite interesting, in the drill cycle, the level, the depth is now made associative to the stock. Okay, so quite a bit of a mouthful there, lots to see. So let's move to Edgecam workflow, and we'll first start talking about those datums. So here's the part that we used before. Remember, this part is editable. I can go back into EWS, edit this part, and of course the toolpaths the features will reassociate, and the toolpaths will change as well. So I want to create a datum up onto this face. If I just simply grab the CPL marker, the orbit, and you'll now notice how it's locking around. And again, we're using the same color scheme. So blue is our Z-axis. So okay, we've got ourselves onto the face, but we're not quite there yet. So as you hover over into the center of the orbit, you'll see how it all glows yellow. So when we click that, you've now got the ability to move this to wherever you wish it to. So that's how you move its origin, by waiting for the yellow to glow. Notice that I can go to the midpoint of an entity, and of course very easily you'll notice also I can go to the center of an arc. So sometimes they were difficult to grab. Now you can see it's extremely easy. So again, that's a little covert enhancement. So I'll move mine over to the corner here, and I want to rotate it. So I could put you can see I've got an axis and I can type an angle in there, but we can grab hold of the quadrant on the orbit and grab and just drag and drop that round. It just lines up, and you can see the amount that you've moved it by, because you can see the rotate amount. And that's the CPL done. So it's very quick, very fast, furious, very easy to create, and that's our CPL created. I'll just leave that there now. Now the CPL is associative. If we look at our editing of the CPLs, which is still in the same spot, is the CPL that I've just created, and I can say make this associative. So what does that mean? It means if I now move this solid body, which I will do, I'll translate it by 50 mil. We'll grab hold of our solid body. See how the CPL just moved with it? In previous releases of Edgecam, that would have stayed in the original position. If I dare do a feature find on this particular part, so in this particular case I'll just do a vertical hole, and I'll ask it to create it on my particular CPL. That's easy enough for us. So there we have our holes. Now if I dare to translate this one more time, ordinarily we would have got a message saying that's not possible, because now you've got associativity to the feature. But you'll now notice that they now move with the solid body. And if I'd copied that, or rotated that and copied it, I would have got duplication of the CPL, I would have got duplication of the features as well. So that's a very big time saver for us. Also, we've got a new method of creating a CPL. We create a CPL and call it my 5-axis. So I'm imagining that I want the tool to look at a part and machine it in this attitude, in this direction. I'm, if you will, eyeballing down the axis of the tool. You can now say view aligned. So that's a new item, view aligned. We're looking in that direction. Okay, so that's some very interesting points with CPL creation. What we'll do now is we'll just do the traditional move across. We'll put our stock on there. We'll put our fixtures on there. So this is all the standard stuff that we tend to do. And then we'll move across into manufacturing. Little tip for you: if you know the name of your post processor, then just type in the first couple of letters of that post processor, so Edgecam will track that down very quickly for you. It is worthwhile creating a toolkit. Remember, you can unlock the toolkit. So by locking the toolkit, no more tools are allowed in, but by unlocking it, Edgecam is free then to enter or add tools that you may have forgot. So we're on our way to manufacturing. Of course, our next step on workflow would be to feature finding. So I'll just put some pockets, flat faces, and I'll of course use my lovely new CPL, my my CPL. Of course, they'll manifest in the same way on that left-hand panel. I'll just accept them for a minute. And now we go off to machining. Now, I'll just clear up the screen a little bit. Ordinarily, we'd go to planning board and then we'd apply. And we could still do that on this particular part. Well, let me just draw your attention rather to options. The options command. This is brand new, and this gives you the option to determine, to dictate how we deploy the new strategy. So for instance, in turning, when you're grooving something, you might say, well, I prefer to use the sequential cancellation method of turn grooving. Or in milling, obviously the obvious one would be say, yes, I always want to waveform it, so I hope and trust everybody out there is using waveform. Maybe one that's not so obvious is by placing 0 into roughing Z offset means that I will not expect Edgecam to come along and finish the floor of a pocket with traditionally a flatline finishing cycle. It will be finished by the roughing cycle. In other words, there'll be 0 offset in the roughing cycle. You don't need to finish it, so obviously that means you do less machining. So if we were to deploy the planning board, you would now get those features being machined in that order, but you are given more responsibility and more sway over how they work. Now in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the machine feature command, which I think some of us out there are beginning to forget. So this is where you can cherry pick the features in the order in which you wish to deploy them. So you don't have to go by a planning board, you can also go by this machine feature command. Now this has been in Edgecam, I think 1 or 2 versions, Simon.
Yes,
but what we've not been able to do is determine how we're going to machine it. It was all or nothing in the past. It had to do roughing and finishing. Now, as you can see, you can determine I just want to rough, and now in a minute or two I'll go and cherry pick those items. But more interestingly, you'll see strategy set. Now this means that Edgecam is capable of deploying its own strategies, which is the default strategies, or if you're that way inclined and you wish to begin writing your own strategies, and when you deploy machining feature or when you deploy planning board, it will deploy your own strategy set. So that's something that you might want to think about for the future, creating your own strategies. So I'm just going to say, Edgecam, I want you to rough. I'll walk up to this flat face and it will just now go about machining that particular feature. As I say, this isn't particularly new, only in the fact that you can determine what or how it's going to machine. I'll do that one more time. I just want to finish, and I'll come into the open pocket, and it'll just do, I think, a profile mill or something around that region there. And just for good luck, I'll do it one more time. I'll do roughing only, walk up to the drilled holes, and of course it will just do spotting drilling to the drilled holes. So that's a new way of machining, if you will, using the machine feature command, but more importantly, you've got more control over the machine feature command. Now, just before I leave the file, I did talk about pictures on dialogues and the whole cycle. So here is our whole cycle now, which has been enhanced. And you might say, oh well, I know all about the strategies, but there are many users who infrequently may use a whole cycle, or very, very infrequently use the back spotting command inside the whole cycle, the back counter boring. So to have pictures on dialogues is very, very useful, and you'll see all this also on the threading cycle. More interestingly, and certainly more importantly, is use current stock. So if I change the stock conditions, we expect the drill cycle, the clearance cycle, the retract values to change, and that's a big enhancement in this particular version of Edgecam. Let me just show you what I mean. As we can see now, we're nice and close with that. I think that's a spotting drill I'm looking at. If I edit the previous roughing cycle and I'll leave 15mm on the Z, we expect to see that regenerate, and we expect that to leave the 15mm. It's done that because we can see the stock's just gone and updated as well. But what I also see is that the drill cycle's lifted up, and that's made it clear for me. So otherwise, if I didn't have that enhancement, I'd now be chasing my tail, having to find the 20 or 30 drilling cycles that might be potentially there, begin to change them. So this new enhancement extremely important in 2014 R2. Okay, so just got some questions. I won't answer them all. I'll say we'll maybe answer them towards the end of the session. But can you dimension the part to create a drawing? I guess that refers to the EWS. So you don't do any dimensioning at the moment. You obviously can do your constraining, but you can't create a paper drawing as you would do inside our part modeler. So if you need to do that, then I suggest you go down the part modeler route. Another question: is there any different strategies in the threading cycle to use leading or trailing edge of the insert? I haven't investigated that. Possibly the answer is yes, because we do now have brand new strategies, and they have been enhanced, and they have been developed around customer feedback. But if it doesn't, then don't be too depressed. Remember now that you can edit these strategies. Everybody has the ability to edit a strategy inside Edgecam. Okay, so that's just some of the questions there. Yeah, and yes, can you move the CPL once you've created it? Yes, you can. You just edit the CPL as you would in the old days, I suppose. Okay, so onward and upward. Again, don't worry if we're not answering your question. We can always email that back once the session's closed. Okay, so now we move into I was going to say an emotive subject, but workflow is Edgecam. So of course, you know, a lot of people out there I've recognised names. You've been using Edgecam maybe as long as I. So obviously you've gone through this evolution of looking what you might term classic Edgecam to what we now see as workflow Edgecam. And some feedback is that I can't do things in workflow that I could have done inside classic. Well, that gap, that demarcation, if you will, is being eroded more and more. And let me just give you some examples here in what we see here on screen. Well, first of all, the first item is that we're able to now see the change or influence the CPL and level. That wasn't possible before. Became frustrating if you wanted to maybe just do some 2D geometry or something, or create stock and you were in the wrong CPL. So that's now perfectly possible. We'll now see the ability to right-hand click over a feature and reveal the operations menu. So prior, what you had to do was go to the operations icon, select, and then digitize, pick the feature. Now you just do it the right-hand click in the good old way. We'll also get the grid view, and there's a new icon inside view configuration that gives you the grid view, and that tracks also to the level. So this again is an old favourite that you may have missed inside workflow. Another interesting one that it actually did catch me out a couple of times. It's always quite useful to verify what machine parameter I'm on. Have I got the right post, or what is the x-axis limit and the z-axis limit on this particular part? And that actually wasn't available in the previous version. So now you'll see that the verify menu is indeed available inside workflow. And indeed, any menu, if we have missed one, there is no reason now to say that I'm missing an icon, I'm missing a menu, because of the next enhancement, that now the user interface is totally customized within inside workflow. And this opens many opportunities to you. You might remember maybe in the previous versions of Edgecam, we gave you the ability to create a mask, a cycle that's been tailored to your own needs. Well, that now could be now put onto your own menu if you wish to. And we do this through tabs, we do this through panels. Let's have a quick look. This is what I meant by being able to change the levels, or change the CPLs. The new command for grid is placed over here, so that's better than rooting around in the old way that you had to find it. And obviously if you lift up the levels I've just done, you'll see that grid lift up as well. So those are just a couple of things that I wanted to point out to you. But the menu itself is totally customizable. We now say customize the ribbon. We now see, if you will, the active ribbon. So for instance, you might say that, well, I don't want people to see EWS, for whatever reason. I want to turn that off. So you could do that. So I've now lost my EWS icon. Go back again. But more importantly, what I want to do is start creating my own commands. My own machining commands tend to be the more common a question. So you could create a new tab. I'll call this Mike's tab. And I'll be very creative this morning, Mike's panel. So we see them two arrive on the right hand side. Now I can pick anything I wish now from the command area. So I've just highlighted edge loop feature and I say add it. That's now gone into the pack. I want to go and put the datum shift on. I add it. That's now gone to the pack. And I can reorder as well. You'll notice the up and down buttons. Reorder. With now OK, you now see Mike's tab, and it's now got my edge loop feature and my datum shift. And you can create as many tabs as you like with as many panels. I don't think there's any limit there, is there, Simon?
There's no limit whatsoever.
No, there's not. So you can create that to your heart's content. So that should really answer any questions about I haven't got a particular command. The command is now lying there for you. Okay, so we're going to move on. Just watching time. As always, I'm probably talking too much. Let's just change the slide and change the part. So I did say that we'll finish off with our turners, and let's look at what we see in the turning world. In the turning world, we've always been able to create a manual turn feature. This has actually been improved, so you might have found it a little bit long-winded in having to pick all these faces, and sometimes you get it wrong. We now envelop a turn part, and you can also alter the size and shape of the beginning and end of the manual turn feature. So again, seeing is believing. We'll do this in a second or two. And inside the finished turning cycle, we're now linking the profiles. So it's very, very common to expect my roughing can cycle tracks the same shape as my finishing can cycle, G71, G70, commonly in an isofanic. I want them two to go together. And you had to be very strict with what you chose. It had to be the identical profile. That's now perfectly possible in 2014 R2 because we can see that we have this use rough turn contour. So let's have a look how this works. This again should cut out a great deal of time for us. So I've already obviously machined a little bit of this part, and I want to create a turn feature. And in olden times gone by, we could have only done that by faces. So what you had to do in certain parts, depending on the size of the part, you'd start digitizing, 20, 30 different faces. And unfortunately, you'd end up with that message because you'd missed out on one of the faces. So it was all very frustrating. So now what the new enhancement allows us to do is say profile. It will envelop, it will just create one big profile, and then you cherry pick where is the profile. Also, what you'll be able to do is determine the end and the beginning extension to elongate it or stretch it, as you do, if you will, inside a cycle. So I'm going to go for profile. You'll now notice this black profile that's enveloped it, and all I need to do is say, well, let's start from here and let's finish over there. And now I have my feature. So it's a lot quicker than what we have to experience with the previous method. Now, in respect to the rough turning cycle, I'm just going to use a turning cycle, if I can remember how to use it, Simon, and just set this up in the good old way. And I'll ask Edgecam just to select that area there. So obviously we've just got our turning cycle in there. Just check that we've got everything nicely set up. Might just use something in there just to pull it off the face, I think. Yeah, that's better. So there's my turning cycle. Now I obviously want a finish cycle, and that finish cycle wants to be linked to it. So I'll just copy these two fellows down, just to save us going in trying to find the tool change and find the cap-toe finishing turning tool. So I'm ready now to start doing my finish turn cycle. And what we'll notice now inside the finish turn cycle is, yes, I want a can cycle, but I also want a rough turn contour. So this will now deliberately ask you, well, which contour are you locking it to? And it's by no accident that we notice that some of the areas now go grey. because it wants to only machine precisely the same proportion of profile that the rough turn profile chose. So what do you want to machine? I'm going to select this area here, and I get my traditional toolpath movement, which in this case is my finished turning cycle. But if I do my generate code, I'll just overwrite whatever I had here before. What we'll now notice is that the cycle for finished turning using the P1004, Q1005, this is mapped precisely to the rough turning cycle. So these two are embedded together. And as I say, that was, I wouldn't say virtually impossible in the past, but you did have to labour a little bit and make sure that you'd picked exactly the right profile. So again, that's a very, very cute enhancement, and I would recommend that to you strongly. Okay, so we're nearly there. In fact, we are there. I'm just going to have a look at some more questions. I think we have answered some already. Yeah, balanced turning, I noticed this will be done in the future. Cool example, thank you very much. I'm pleased everybody likes the user interface being changed. I don't see any other questions coming in. Oh, there's one question there, Simon. What's that say? Will shared
profiles work on any post?
Oh yes, yeah. So the shared profile, which is alluding to, let's just come back here. This will appear on your post processor, on any post processor, provided that first of all you've asked that post processor, that CGD file, to allow CAN cycles. It's pretty obvious. But remember that as ever with any new release of Edgecam, you want to update that CGD file, so it will only take on that change on that particular CGD file. Okay, I think we're more or less there, and we've done our 40 minutes as I promised you, so I think we can close things down there. Yeah. Don't see any other questions? No, I don't. Okay. Okay, well, I think we're there. I thank Simon for his assistance today. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Mike.
And I thank everybody who came on board today. So we've got 50, 60 odd attendees today. So I thank you all for coming on board and for working with Edgecam. Obviously, keep looking out for more enhancements. Obviously, I think that there's a rumour of SU2 coming out shortly, just to give us more enhancements in the release, and obviously then we'll be talking to you again at 2015 R1. I think we've done all our update training courses, have we, Simon, or is there any more going to be?
The first batch have been completed. I think there may well be others as a mop-up operation. Okay,
excellent. So if you've not got to the upgrade courses and you've liked what you've seen today, then by all means contact the service department, or indeed contact your account manager. So from Simon and I, thank you very much for your attendance. I hope you enjoy your weekend, and we'll speak to you some more. Thank you and goodbye.